Hello everyone, welcome to the Gravithon 2021 session. So this is Likit Kanagalla, host for this session. And hello sir, hello Harsh Bothra sir, welcome to the session. So Harsh Bothra sir is working as a security consultant at the Red Hunt Labs and is also one of the core pen tester at Cobalt.io. He is also a penetration tester, application security and red team. He participates in different bug bounty programs, which includes and he was also an top 160 researchers in and MVP for 2020 Q1 to Q2 on Bugrout and is a part of the snack rating. He's actively finding the bugs and he is also a publisher. He got different Hall of Fame from the different companies. Some of his publications are Project Beep, a open source scope-based reconnaissance tool, and also Learn 365 Challenge, which is a repository notes containing of each day under hash Learn 365 Challenge. I recommend you all to give it a try. It was a nice one. And he is also having the publishing of Hacking, Be a Hacker with Ethics, which is also recommended by AICTE Cybersecurity Reference Book and as well as NITTTR Chandigarh. And also he is also having the another publications which is Mastering Hacking, The Art of Information Gathering and Scanning by Kanna Publishers. He's also an wall of fame in the different well-known companies like StackPath, ConvertKit, X Infinity Home and X5, Statuspace, Naspers, IC2, ISC2, sorry, HubSpot, Bothra, TransferWise, Arlo, and many more. And not only these, he is also having the some of the Hall of Fame in Master VDP and also 35 plus private programs. He is also an Buckroad MVP for 2020 Q1 and also certified ethical hacker V10 and many more certifications. So we were very pleasure to having you your session at Gravithon 2021, sir. Over to you.
Thank you, Bala. That was a great introduction. Even I couldn't have given it much better, I guess. So let me just quickly spin up my screen. Yeah. Let me know if you guys can see the screen. Is
Yes,
it
sir.
visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's visible.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. So today I'm going to talk about application security approach. This is not a very new topic, and since you all are more interested towards cyber security and talking about bug bounties and stuff like that, I just want to give you a quick insights into what exactly application security is and why application security is a superset of bug bounty and why you should focus more upon going into application security rather than just being limited to bug bounty. So both things are pretty much similar, but there are a few thin line differences which makes somebody a security engineer versus a bug bounty hunter. Okay, so let's dive into that. I'll quickly skip this part because I guess this is already, I guess, a big introduction is given by Bala. So, okay. So agenda for today is going to be a quick introduction to application security, what it is and what we do exactly in application security. Then application security versus bug hunting and what are the major differences or what are those thin line differences which differentiate those things, right? Then I'm going to talk about my application testing methodology, how I do reconnaissance, some of the my personal burp suite hacks or what I like most about burp suite, and then some approaches for client side issues, some approaches for server side issues, and logical and access control issues. Because what happens is whenever a beginner start hacking on a platform, say Bugcrowd or HackerOne or Synac or whatever it is, they mainly run behind some of the security issues which are not having a great impact, such as let's say SPF demarc or missing rate limitings or some similar kind of issues, right? Whether the major impact of most of the issues lies when you find a server-side issues like cross-site, XML external entities, server-side request forgery, or the client-side issues like cross-site request forgery or cross-site scripting and something like that. Then it comes logical issues like can you temper the payment if there is a payment gateway or something? Can you find access control issues like user one can access user two's data or vice versa? So these are a few issues which actually show some impact when you send the report to your client or into a bug bounty platform or whatever you are doing, right? Okay. So, okay, one quick disclaimer is that everything is for educational purpose only. And if you have any questions, please feel free to drop into the chat and I'll try to pick up in between. So application security introduction. Now, for those who are not pretty much familiar with the term application security or AppSec or something like that, this is pretty much similar to what you do in bug bounty, that you go to the a particular application, you find security bugs and you report them, right? So the process is quite similar, but in application security, basically we perform in-depth security and risk analysis. So I would again highlight security and risk analysis. So basically in bug bounty you focus upon exploitable issues only, like you found a cross-site scripting, you will report it. But when it comes to application security, we focus upon exploitable as well as defense in depth issues as well. So when I say defense in depth, it means that there might be some missing best practices that I have to go and report. Okay, so this is one of the difference. Then uh, this application security domain includes a lot of domains like web application, mobile application, thick clients, thin clients, APIs, or anything. Let's say some IoT applications or something like that. So anything which talks about an application comes under application security, as the name says itself. Now, this term is often referred as AppSec, and bug bounties can be considered as a subset of the application security. I am going to explain it why in the next slides. Now, this term is more recognized in the professional cybersecurity world. When I say professional cybersecurity world, I mean the corporate things. So let's say I do a job as a security consultant at Parent Labs, right? So my profile is about offensive application security. What I do basically is to test a different set of application, from cloud to mobile to web to APIs to tech client to networks. Now, I test those application, and we follow OWASP best practices. We follow like our custom checklist, and at the end, the major goal is that we find every single misconfiguration to exploitable issues and we report them to the client. Okay, so uh, in a regular job or in regular penetration testing or application security engineer job, you have a limited time. Let's say you have 5 days window for performing a test on application which is having, let's say, 40 dynamic pages. Okay, now you are time boxed and you have to cover everything from SQL injection to cross-site scripting to just sensitivity exposure. You have to cover everything basically, right? But when it comes to bug bounty, you are not limited. Like you can spend 20 days to just hunt for SQL injection, or you can just spend 2 days for just cross-site scripting. But when you into a full-time job, or when you are going for specific penetration testing application security approach, you have to be time boxed and you have to cover everything. So covering everything in a time boxed environment gives you more power, because you are now pretty much you can say that fast tracked. And only drawback I see is that sometimes you miss security issues, because some applications are quite complex and you need to give some time on them to identify some interesting issues like SQL injection, or some blind SQL injection, or some out of the band attacks. Okay. So again, application security versus bug bounty. So the one of the major difference is that bug bounty is not time constrained. You have all the time in the world to go and spend on a particular application or particular bug or something like that. In application security, you are obviously time boxed. You have to cover everything. In bug bounty, you are not able to cover everything. It's just like you are hitting one bug and you are getting paid for that particular one bug. In application security, you are getting paid for assessing the complete application itself, right? Now, as the name clearly suggests, that application security is clearly the superset of the bug bounty, right? Now, the only interesting part about application security is the continuous learning that you get, that you are not just limited to the web application or mobile application. You work with a different client, you directly interact with the clients, you write a lot of reports, executive summaries, and things like that. This enables a professional learning as well. And also you get to test a wide variety of applications and wide type of application, from cloud to mobile application to APIs, right? And yeah, application security is not that much frustrating as bug bounty if you're not getting it right hit. So this is one of the again difference. Okay. So if you guys have any questions so far, just please feel free to ask in the chat. I'm constantly keeping a watch on it. So common approach, AppSec or bug bounty. So from now this point, everything or every approach is applicable to both bug bounties and application security. There is not a much difference in both of them. I'll try to highlight if there is any kind of differences. Okay, so there are a few rules which I have created for myself and I'm going to share with you all. The rule one is don't limit yourself to what you have learned through tutorials and labs. Okay. So what happens is most of the people go about learning from CodeSwigger or from Pentest Lab. They are like exceptionally good resources. I agree on that. But just don't get limited to those resources only, right? Because you have a solution to those labs and you have a mentality that, okay, these are intentionally vulnerable and somehow I will be able to hack into that. But the real life scenarios are totally different most of the time. And the things which you will see in the lab that, let's say you are solving DVWA, you found that the cross-site scripting is just a payload away, but might not be the case in the real world applications, right? So and just don't get limited to the labs, because labs are just to simulate for a specific time period. Let's say you are a beginner and you are going to start somehow. That's fine. At that time you should focus on lab. After you solved a plenty of lab or spend a plenty of time on the lab, start hitting the real life applications, because otherwise you will be into too much comfort zone and won't be able to hit anything, and then it will be somewhat frustrating. Okay. Now, rule two is to create your own checklist. Make a detailed checklist for every possible test case that you can perform and you know. Okay, so let's say I know how to attack on a web application in 100 different ways. Now I'll try to list all those 100 ways, and let's say SSRF is one of those 100 ways. Now under SSRF, I will list all the way that I know that how to hunt for SSRF. Okay, what are the types of SSRF? How will I hunt for a SSRF, or how will I approach for SSRF? Now, anytime if I'll see a new tweet or a new blog coming up showing a new technique on SRF, I can simply go and add to my checklist. Okay. So this is how building a checklist helps you. It basically, whether you're doing a bug bounty or something, let's say I have a checklist for business logic test cases. Now, whenever I see something interesting, let's say there is a payment gateway, I know what to do, right? The first thing I'm going to do is to check for the payment tempering. Then second thing is to, if there is any refund scenarios, I'll try to abuse that and things like that. Okay. Now, keep a track record of everything you test. Often you may return to a program or application later someday, and maybe your payloads execute later. Now, this is something everyone might not follow, but keeping a track record of everything helps you a lot. You can see that what are the new features implemented by the application, what are the new changes made by the application or something like that. And whenever you return back to an application, especially in bug bounty, it actually helps you to stay one step ahead of your competition, right? Because bug bounty is very competitive compared to the application security, because in application security, you are responsible for the complete project. And even if you get 10 bucks or 20 bucks, you are obviously getting a fixed salary or a fixed income based upon the project, right? Now, rule 4 says that track CVs and public exploit releases. This is pretty much important because most of the application these days utilize the third party applications, right? Somehow, let's say Jira or something like that. And if you track the CVs and public exploits, you can find some interesting security issues. And also you can use nuclear templates to automate those things. Those CVs and public exploit will mainly help you in network pen testing, which you won't see much in bug bounties, because nobody trusts you with the internal network in bug bounty, because internal network is something sensitive, and somebody needs to be responsible for testing that, right? So you will see this network pen testing part mainly in the application security things. Now, rule 5 is be lazy and automate stuff. So, not automate everything, but the repetitive task, let's say directory fuzzing, let's say your SL scanning, or nucleus scanning or something like that. So just automate those repetitive commands or repetitive tasks and write small script in Bash or Python or whatever language you're comfortable in. And that will do your job while you focus on the manual approach. Now, say no to the automated vulnerability scanner. They are good, like, but they will miss a lot of security issues and are not reliable. And you can say that they are helping hand, but they you should not just focus on the automated vulnerability scanner, and never run the vulnerability scanners on the production. Like, don't run Acunetics or something like that on the production. It may crash the application as well because they send a lot of traffic. Now, always be active to learn, apply, and experiment, because the more you will learn a lot of new techniques, and you will get to know that, okay, these are the various ways I can approach a target and hack on that. Okay. So any questions so far? Sounds good. Chat is pretty much neat and clean. Okay, so application testing methodology, this is pretty much simple. I'll go by this thing first and then I'll pick up this one. So define, navigate, understand, prepare, perform, document, learn. Okay, I know it was quite fast, but so when I say define, it means define the target scope. So make sure that you know what your target scope is and you test only that particular scope, right? Sometimes people go pretty much out of the scope while looking for some data and then it just get maybe out of scope or declined or something like that. So doesn't make sense that you invest your time something which was, totally out of the scope. So first thing first is to define the target scope. Second thing is to navigate the application as an end user. Now, this is pretty important, right? Most of the people, they simply start hitting the application, start filing the payloads without understanding what are the various application flows. Now, when you navigate the application as an end user, you get to know that what are the various features and functionalities, what are the various workflows in the application. Let's say there's a purchase workflow. Okay, so you will go to a product, you will add the item to the cart, then you will process the payment and things like that. This is how the purchase workflow will work, right? This is a simple assumption, but it might be different from application to application, and you might see some interesting business logic to abuse there, right? So when you navigate the application as an end user, you are basically also following the third point to understand the application's business logic. Now, once these 3 points are done, another thing is to prepare a potential threat map. Now, what is a threat map? Threat map is basically a theoretical scenario that for this functionality, there might be these attack scenarios. Let's say there is a file upload functionality. So I can assume that for a file upload functionality, I can check for shell upload, I can check for cross-site scripting, I can check for denial of service, I can check for XSE, I can check for SSRF. Basically, I can check for a lot of issues, right? So functionality wise, prepare a threat map, which will be a theoretical checklist kind of thing for you, which will be specific to each and every application. And now you can do a lot of brainstorming, and the potential to find the security issues which others might miss will increase. Okay. Then, based upon your scope, which we defined in the first point, perform a scope-based recon. I have a separate talk on it. You can go and refer. Go to resources.harshbothra.tech and you will get everything which from previous talks to PPTs. I'll just mention in the chat. Just a second. Okay, so I'll mention that in the chat later. So then perform manual pen test. This is pretty much important because do not just stuck to the automation. Okay, always like automation is good, but not always. Then perform application specific attacks. Let's say the application is of a crypto application. Now, then you have to see what are the some attacks which should be applicable to the crypto based applications. Let's say it's an e-commerce application or a banking application. See the attacks which are applicable for either e-commerce or banking application. Document everything what you have observed. Make a habit of documentation, because whether you are doing a full-time job or you are just stuck to the bug bounties or doing freelance, documentation is pretty important, because someday if your client or anybody from bug bounty or a treasure or something, somebody come back to you and asking more proof or something like that, or more observation or to add more information, you will have everything to give because you are documenting stuff. But if you are not, then you might miss a lot of things. And the most importantly, learn where you lack and hit back hard. So follow regular learning, follow the right people on the Twitter, read a lot of blogs and things like that, and you will eventually get a lot of learning, and it will obviously help you out. Okay, so if you remember, I mentioned prepare a potential threat map. So let me explain what a threat mapping is. The first thing first is to navigate the application thoroughly and list all the components and functionalities. Like, let's say the application allows you to process the payment, it allows you to change the profile information, purchase something, add something to the cart, add something to wish list or something like that. These are the components and functionalities. Okay. Now, prepare a theoretical attack scenario for each functionality. And to prepare those scenarios, we will focus upon CIA, trade, and CRUD. So for those who don't know CIA is basically not your chief investigation agency. It's uh, the confidentiality, integrity, and availability. These are the major factors to define the criticality of a security issue. When I say confidentiality, it means can I read somebody else's data? When I say integrity, can I change somebody else's data? when I say availability, can I make the application or the data unavailable for the specific user or set of user, basically, right? Now, the CRUD is basically create, read, update, and delete. You might have heard this term in the SQL if you have learned in your college or university. So basically, we create impact scenarios based upon the CRUD. Can I create something? Can I read something? Can I update something? Or can I delete something? So based upon the CIA or CRUD or using both, we create the impact scenarios. Now, from those theoretical scenarios, now we have a checklist. And while you are performing the assessment, verify that you have checked for all those test cases. Now, this basically broaden your mindset and gives you a wider perspective of what you can hunt on a wide set of applications. Okay. Now let's talk about manual testing approach. Now, keep vulnerability standards such as WASP Top 10, ASVS, Sense Top Risk in mind while you perform a pen test. This becomes pretty much important because sometimes the pen test goes pretty much complex, or your bug bounties, things go pretty much complex, and you lost the track of what you're doing, right? Then understand the application workflow, find out the various possible workflows of the same feature, try to break into those application flows, and that's where you will find a lot of business logic issues. Let's say you are doing a payment and all of a sudden you found a way to bypass the payment and access those features which were available after the payment without doing a payment, right? So you are basically trying to break the application flow and you found a critical business logic issue. Understand what technologies are being used by the application, perform technology specific attack. Let's say you found Nginx, or you found some, let's say, the application using AngularJS. Now you know that when you say AngularJS, it might be possible the application is vulnerable to client-side template injection, not the cross-site scripting general ones, right? Now try to find out bypasses for evading filters. You will see a lot of webs in the modern application. So try to find out a way or a bypass to evade those filters. Try to perform testing for every single vulnerabilities which you can. Do not rely upon automated scanners. Again, learn, research about the things where you are stuck and hack again. Okay. So this is about scope-based recon. I won't dive that much deep into the scope-based recon because there is a different talk. I'll share the resources. So when I say scope-based recon, I basically divided it reconnaissance into three categories: small scope, medium, and large scope. When I say small scope, there might be only one or two application in scope. Let's say harshbothra.tech or something.com or something like that. When I say medium scope, I say star.harshbothra.tech is in scope because that's a pretty much wildcard scope. And when I say large scope, it means that every asset owned by that particular company will be in scope. Okay. Now, why scope-based recon methodology? Because it will save you a lot of time because you know exactly what to look for in what scope. Then you can easily automate your recon workflow and less chance to submit out of scope issues. And just like another security methodology, it enable you to perform a better reconnaissance. Now, let me just quickly tell you about some of the Burp Suite life hacks. So to be in scope, one of the important thing is to use advanced scope control. So when you go to the target menu, there is an option to set the scope, right? So when you set a scope, you will see only the traffic, sorry, you enabled from the specific scope, right? So this often helps you to test only the things and avoid all the unnecessary traffic. Now, important extensions is like there are a lot of extension available in the Burp Suite market, but you should know that what are the important ones, right? So, for example, Burp Bounty, which is a really interesting extension. You can see it's like a nuclei for Burp. Then Authorize, or if you are using Auth Metrics or Auto Repeater, these are for testing access control issues. Then you can use Collaborator Everywhere to test for SSRF related issues. Then you can use Freddy to test for deserialization issues, and you can use Hackbar, you can use Hackwater. Like these are pretty much extensions which I use. One is the Logger plus plus to keep the logs because I do a lot of pen tests. I need to keep the logs. Then you can also use the content type converter, which is pretty much important. So let's say there is a JSON based data going on and you want to test for XSE. So you can use content type converter to convert the JSON to XML and test if the XML parsing is supported. Then you can use Joseph, which is extension for attacking JWT tokens. And I guess these are the pretty much. Then if you see SAML, then there is a SAML radar. If you see GraphQL, there is a InQL and GraphQL radar extension. So based upon the scenarios, you can use a lot of extension. Right. So testing for access control issues, the authorize is one of my favorite tool. All you have to do is to give a cookie of a lower privileged user and explore the application using higher privileged one, and it will tell you that if there is any bypass or something like that. So pretty much simple, right? You can first with Burp suite. So a lot of time you will see that you cannot access the application directly, and you have to use some proxying and something like that. So you can also first everything using Burp suite, create a word list and import it into the intruder, and that's all, right? Now, Burp suite has a lot of interesting options like setting up the scope and then setting up the macros for just simply go and search about how to set up a macro in Burp suite, because that's a pretty long process to cover in this particular talk. But macros help you to basically regenerate session on its own. Consider it as a login sequence kind of thing, that you will tell the macro that, okay, this is how I will log into the application. Every time your session is expired in the Burp Suite's active scanner, it will automatically log you back in and generate a new session for you. So pretty much interesting where when you do a long time testing, like 10 hours a day or something like that. Okay. PHP deceleration, I'll cover in the server side issues. Okay. Okay. So I'll be taking a minute break. So if you guys have any question, please feel free to bombard. Anything that came up in your mind so far in the talk, please feel free to ask. Okay. Okay. So when I talk about server side issues, so when I say server side issues, that issues that will impact the backend server, not only the application itself, right? So and there are a lot of server-side issues like server-side request forgery, server-side template injection, then your XML entities, then SQL injection, command injection, and a lot of things, right? Including the insecurity selection. Now, the common approach is, the first of all, is to identify the right point and the parameter. Let's say you are hunting for XML entities, right? So first thing first is to identify a particular place where you can put the payload. So the first thing that you will do is to identify where the application is sending data in XML format, right? Or let's say there is no endpoint to send XML, which is sending XML data. The thing you will do is convert whatever data type is going on, let's say JSON, to XML and see if XML parser is supported, right? A lot of times multiple parser are supported, but only a specific parsing, let's say JSON, is shown in the documentation. Okay, so this is one thing that you can do. Secondly, if there is a file upload functionality, you can do endless things. I have a blog on ESP hack which you can go and check, which talks about file upload attacks. So that's again a pretty neat and interesting thing. Now, let's say you are testing for insecure deserialization. Now, this is a pretty much complex topic itself, because in deserialization, you have to understand how the serialization happened in the first place, right? So, as somebody asked that, what is the PHP deserialization easy way? So, what serialization is? Let's understand serialization first. So, serialization is basically converting data into a more easy to communicate form. Okay, not communicate in the human form, but for the network, right? So basically, you are serializing data in some chunks so that it can be easily transmitted over one network to another network, right? And when the application receives it back, it gets deserialized. So for PHP, it's called object injection, right? So in PHP, when you serialize data, it creates the object. Okay, so let's say you have a class. So what it will do, it will create a payload out of object. So I'm not sure how to simplify it much further, but what happens is whenever you serialize data in a PHP, it converts into an object notation, and that notation, if not handled properly, let's say, so there are some functions like magic function, or some magic functions like wake up, which are considered to be insecure. So if your deserialized data is going on to those functions, it may lead to the remote code execution kind of things, right? So there is a blog on WASP. So if you go and search about PHP deceleration WASP, there is a pretty neat blog showing the sample code and everything, and I guess you will get a very good idea out of it. Right. So approaching for client-side issues. So when I say client-side issues, not just limited to the cross-site scripting or the server-side, the cross-site request forgery. It can be client-side template injection. It can be sensitive data in the JavaScript. It can be bypassing logics on the client side. So one of the common example I'll give you here is that let's say you have a two-factor authentication, and when you enter wrong OTP on login, it will say you in the response, it will say that 400 error, that you are forbidden or some blog. Now, what if I change this 400 to 200 okay and forward the request? In a lot of cases, you will find that you are able to log into the application successfully bypassing the two-factor authentication. Now, I have a like a big mind map, a talk, and a blog on the two-factor authentication vulnerabilities, which you can go and check and maybe find some interesting bug out of it. So common approach for testing client-side issues is to understand where you can abuse the logic on the client side and understand how the logics are handled. Let's say a particular function is carried out by JavaScript. So what you can do is you might try to use the dev console or developer console and use that to temper with the JavaScript functionalities. And if you are good at JavaScript, you might be able to bypass certain things. So client-side issues are pretty, nasty. A lot of people don't look for it at all. So for client-side issues, all you have to do is to just keep an eye on the various logics and see that which thing is handled by the client side, not by the server side. Okay. And for the business logic, only one thing I would say that if you are testing for the business logic, you have to map and trace the application completely. And once you map and trace the application completely, you will get to know that, okay, these are the specific business logic of the application. Now find a way to abuse them. Let's say the application is only accepting the positive quantity of items, right? This is a business logic that they only accept positive quantities. Now, what if I come and say negative quantities, or I provide negative quantities? What happens next, right? So if sometimes the application crashes, and sometimes it might result into application level denial of service attacks. So these are the pretty much things which you can do for the business logic issues as well. Now, this pretty much covers my talk in a very quick fashion because I guess this was a quick introduction to a lot of things. But feel free to use next 15 minutes to bombard any questions if you have, and I'll be happy to answer them. You can ask anything out of the topic as well. That's pretty much fine. And if you don't have anything right now, you can always be in touch on the following mediums, which you can see right now. Bhuvan, can you please explain your question? Can you show me what is nodes? Like what exactly mean by the nodes? Okay, maybe you can share this thing with me on, I guess, Twitter or something. I'll try to have a look on it because without seeing what you are exactly looking at, I might not be able to answer you right now.
Yes, sir. Hello, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir. It was a great session. It was an amazing session, sir. So, sir, like we're having some kind of questions.
Yeah.
So, those were: is application security and bug bounty, like which is web application pen tester, is it same or two different categories? Like
So,
someone asked the procedure. Since in the Babshoot, we are going to use the proxy and we are going to test on the website, right? Is the same for the application security too?
So basically, application security is more of a superset of the bug bounty itself. When I say application security, the area that we test is vast compared to the bug bounties because we test internal network, we do cloud audits as well, which you won't see in the bug bounties. The first thing, right? Second thing is that the heavy emphasis on communication, right? So in bug bounties, you are not directly interacting with the client; you are interacting with the middleman, like the triager or the platform. But in the pen testing or in the application security, we are directly communicating with the client. So you are totally responsible for what you do, right? In bug bounties, you can spend like how much time you want on a specific issue. Let's say you are willing to spend 1 month on finding a SQL injection on a specific application, but in application security or pen testing or your full-time job, you are limited. You have a complete application and you have 5 days to test everything. You cannot say that just I tested for SQL injection for the 5 days. No, you cannot do that. You have to test SQL injection, access control, access, like every security issue in those 5 days, right? And when I say 5 days, like almost 8 hours a day, so 40 hours roughly, right? So and also sometimes those 5 days include reporting as well. So you can see that how one manages the time and manages his approach is really important. So as a pen tester, the first thing that you learn is to how to manage that approach and how to basically, in a time box manner, how you can perform various attacks.
Okay, sir. And the next question is, sir, in the rule number 6, you are saying that don't use the third-party applications, right? So is it the same as the Burp? Like, is the Burp is a
No, so
third-party application?
no. So don't interpret it wrong. So when I say don't use the automated vulnerability scanners, so Burp is a proxy tool, right? So Burp has active passive scanner. That is a one feature, right? You can use it or it's totally up to you, right? But the major thing is like when I say automated vulnerability scanner, I say tools like Acunetics, NetSparker, or something like that, or just don't rely upon the Burp's automated scanner. Burp Suite is a master tool for everything, and the major feature that you will use in Burp Suite are the collaborator, proxy, your repeater, your intruder, your sequencer, extender, and the decoder, right? So that's totally okay if you use Burp Suite, but don't focus upon just using the automated part of these tools.
Okay, sir. So also there is another question, like
Mhm.
since for the web application pen testing, we had so many of open source programs, and we can
Mhm.
also get it from Bugcrowd, HackerOne, and many other platforms. So how to get a web application security project? How to approach to that?
Okay. So I'll tell you from both bug bounty as well as the AppSec perspective. So from bug bounty perspective, when I say that how I can choose a target, so that's totally upon one's preference. So my usual preference is to choose a target which has a huge scope, because when there's a huge scope, most of the people don't keep a track. And since let's say it's a big company, let's say Facebook, right? And Facebook has a very big scope. Facebook does a lot of changes on a regular basis, let's say daily or weekly. Now there are a lot of chances that the new website might show up from the Facebook subdomains, and there are a lot of new interesting issues that might show up on them. So my common approach to select a target is to go about just choosing a target which is having a huge scope and also flexible policies, right? Some targets are like very much restricted that you cannot report this, you cannot report that. So I focus upon the flexible and use scope targets. And about the target, that okay, they are good targets like Facebook, Google, and the payment is on time and something like that, because sometimes you report issues and the payment never comes and it becomes frustrating. Now, from the pen testing perspective, you have to approach the people for the you have to approach the companies or some small startups to get the pen testing project. So I work with Cobalt, I work in a full-time job. So there are a lot of projects that I do on a regular basis. So on an average in a month, I test almost 10 applications, right? So that's okay. Once you have a good profile, you might apply for Cobalt, or you might apply for some other freelance options, or you might directly approach the companies and get some freelance projects.
Okay, sir. And so is malware analysis comes under the application security?
No. So malware analysis is a completely different field in information security domain. So when you say malware analysis, so it's basically analyzing the various signature, right? Creating some signatures for the antiviruses tool and performing a lot of reverse engineering kind of things to understand and find a cure for a specific malware. So this is what I know basically about malware analysis. I am totally not into this domain, so might not be the right person that how to start on this malware analysis part.
So, what are the best tools for the mobile application security?
So, mobile application security, that's a very good question because, again, so mobile application security comes with a lot of challenges. And yesterday itself, we recorded a talk with Cobalt. So, there's a pen tester diaries on Cobalt's expert session is coming, I guess, next month, first week. So where I and two other folks from Cobalt Core discussed a lot about Android pen testing. So I'll keep a little suspense for that part, but just to give you a quick insights about the tools, we use MobSF for some automated scanning. We use APK leaks, we use Burp suite, we use Frida a lot, Objection, then we use Drozer, then we use tools like Runtime Security Framework, ADB, Logcat. Then there are some tools like JEDX for performing static analysis. These are a few tools which we use.
Yes. So how can we get a good internship in VABT?
Yeah. So the first thing is like these days, a lot of people are doing bug bounty and having all like Hall of Fames and things like that. So you can showcase to the people that I already know my stuff, that what I can do. The best part is to approach the various companies and small scale startups. Let's say my company, let's say Redent Labs or Security Innovation, or there are a lot of companies. You can go and approach them and ask them if they are having some intern position available, right? And if they have, then you can apply for the internship and so. So also, you can ask for your seniors or somebody who is already into this market for the referral in their company for the internship. But that totally depends, right? If you have some skills or if what company you are looking for.
Okay, sir. And and so since Bugcrowd, HackerOne, there are so many platforms were there, and when the users were reporting, they are saying that like they are getting a lot of duplicates. So how can we can find the some unique bugs? What are the tips for finding the unique bugs?
Yeah. So the first thing, or the first, first question I'll ask the people is like ask yourself what kind of bugs you are reporting, right? So if you're just reporting low hanging issues, like let's say rate limiting on forget password, and then you are asking to the god, please, this should be a valid issue. Highly unlikely that it will be a valid issue, right? Because these are the low hanging fruits, and obviously everybody with less or like who is totally beginner can also find those issues, because all you have to do is to run intruder, that's it, right? Now, when you approach for issues like cross-site scripting or SQL injection, server-side request forgery, XML external entities, these are the critical severity issues, and 99% of the application owner will fix them as soon as somebody will report them, or maybe within a couple of months, right? So, when you find a SQL injection, there will be very less chance that it will be a duplicate issue, right? So, change your approach and in finding issues which are actually having some impact. Otherwise, it will be really, less feasible to say that how to avoid duplicates, because if you will keep on reporting issues like like there is no email verification, there is rate limiting, there is this, there is that, or obviously you will feel a lot of duplicates and you will face a lot of duplicates.
Okay, sir. And sir, for example, one person asked, for example, he got an project, like he got an internship in the application security or else WPT. So when he in his duration of period, he found very is there any policy that you need to hunt for this many bugs? Like only if you found 10 bugs, then only we will pay out you. Or else is there any criteria like that? Or else if he didn't found any bug, then also what happens? Or if he found limited bugs, then what happens?
So there are a couple of things, right, in this question. So this is a very good question, right? So the first thing is like if you find a lot of security issues, obviously the client is happy because you identified a lot of loopholes. Now the major concern is what if you don't, right? Let's answer the first thing is what if you find a limited issues, let's say 10 issues or 20 issues. That's totally fine, right? You are at least finding something, right? Second thing is that what are the client's expectation? Is client expecting you to find a lot of issues, or is just client doing it for the compliance thing, or what is the client's expectation, right? The third thing is the application is getting tested from some other vendor as well, because what happens that sometimes the application owners gives the application to different people to get it tested. Now, if there is a lot of difference, let's say you found 20 issues but the other company or other person found 50 issues, and that's a very big gap, and then you might be in trouble in terms of payment and something, the trust thing, right? Now what if I don't find any issues? Now So that's where the coverage checklist will help you out. So if you remember, let me just switch back this thing. Uh, yeah, this rule too. So this checklist will help you tell the client that I have tested for 100 issues and these are the outcomes, and your application is really secure, and there is no high critical or medium weakness identified, and I have performed these test cases. Always keep a Burp Suite project safe for at least 6 months and keep the log so that you can share with the client. And you can say that while I tested for the 6 months, this was not the case, but it might be that you created some changes. That's why the issue came into existence. So these are the things that can happen. But in 90% of the chances, if you don't find any bug, that's totally okay. Because in pen testing, the application goes through regular security testing, and a lot of times you will not find new bugs. So I test a lot of application on Cobalt, and sometimes we end up finding only two issues, but still we get the full payment because we are telling the clients via our updates and everything that I am doing the coverage, I am doing this, and this was the behavior. And since we do in a team, so there are two, three people in general. So when everybody is not getting issue, it means that application is pretty much secure. So that's totally okay. I guess you won't see any issues in terms of payment unless there is a comparison testing and somebody is finding more issues than you. Like you are finding 20, they are finding 50. But you are finding
Okay.
20 and they are finding 22, that's okay, right? That's manageable difference.
Okay, sir. So, sir, how to get started in this app security? Like from where they can start? Is your like Lens 365 repository includes the web application, Android application, application security, or it is only for limited one?
No, so Learn 365 repository includes everything, right? So everything which I find interesting or everything which I give a read. So basically, this project Learn 365 I started just as a hobby project because when you do a full-time job and you're engaged in a lot of activities, it's really hard to learn something new daily. And if you are not learning something, you will be into some zone where you are not sure that what's happening in the market or what's new, what kind of new attacks are coming in the market, right? So this challenge was to challenge myself to at least spare 10 minutes of a day to learn something new. And then it just, caught fire on Twitter. And that's how I decided to create a repository so that it can help people as well. So it contains everything which I find interesting, from application security in like mobile application, web application, Docker containers, cloud. It has everything.
Okay, sir.
So
So,
it's not
since
my
the
personal, it doesn't have everything which is my own talks on something. It's like other people's blog, other people's talks. It has some of my own content, but most of the content are of other people, right? So
okay,
yeah.
sir. So, like since WPT is related to the web application security, is it necessary to learn the web development technologies before get started into it?
No, but if you have a good understanding about JavaScript, it will really help you out in a lot of attacks on the client side.
Okay. So, like since this is a cyber security and testing, the companies won't give the opportunities to the normal people who doesn't know about it. So, is there any chance for the fresher to get the internship or job in any company in this domain for the
So
freshers?
the one thing I would say that it's not the case that freshers won't get a job if you have zero experience. You will still get a job because when I started, I was a fresher itself in terms of professional experience, obviously. So I got a job easily. I cracked the interview. Now, you should possess some skills because in cybersecurity, nobody's going to judge you on what degree and how much pointer you have in your 4 years of degree or 3 years of degree. Ultimately, it matters that how you perform in the interview or how you perform in the practical test, right? So if somebody says that I have zero knowledge in cybersecurity and I want to get a job, so think yourself that obviously how can somebody will lend you in your company if you are not having a skill, right? You have to learn something first, and then you have to apply those skills and showcase to that company that I can be of a value to your company, right? So if you can showcase that, if you know how to hack applications, if you, when I say hack application, I mean like how to test applications, then obviously you can approach them for an interview. And if your interview goes well and meet the expectation, obviously they will give you a job. It's nothing like the freshers won't get a job.
Okay, sir. So, and last question but not the least, since in the companies there will be called as after the once the project is completed, there will be called the testing phase, the testing team. Is the testing team is the same as the application security team or WBT team, or the that testing and this testing is completely different?
Can you please repeat the question again? Like I just missed
So,
the part.
like in companies, if the client got the project and the development will team work on it and send to the testing phase, right? In
Okay, okay. So that is a QA.
service based companies or
That is a
product
that
based
is a
companies.
that is a that is a QA testing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so
So
that is a totally different thing. So
that
the
is a total
quality
different thing.
analysis and assurance talks about how the code's quality is. Basically, they talk about if they pass, the basic data structure scenarios, the time complexity and space kind of thing like that. So these are the quality assurance thing. Then they check for the various test cases, like how the application process various input types and whatever you learn in software engineering, basically subject. So that is more of like QA testing. When I say application security, that's a penetration testing part. That is like you are penetrating the application from an attacker's perspective, like a black box or gray box perspective. So those are two different things.
Okay, sir. That's for the
And a
Q&A, sir.
QA person never likes a pen tester, and developers never like a pen tester. These are, pen testers has a lot of enemies. You will see.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I know. Yes, sir. That's it for Q&A, sir. Thanks a lot for coming to the
Sure,
Gravithon 2021, sir.
sure, no worries.
Yes, sir.
Again, thank you very much, everyone. And if you have any questions left, please feel free to reach out on these mediums, and I'll try to answer as early as possible. And once again, thank you, Bala and the team, for inviting me. It was great to speak to you all.
Yes, sir. It was our pleasure to having you, sir.
Okay,
Thanks.
then,
Thanks a
folks.
lot.
If
Thanks a
no
lot,
more
sir.
questions, thank you so much and have a great day.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Bye.